Hey everyone, so I'm going to do a video on completing the square so you guys know how to go through the steps, and if you have any questions on completing the square, maybe this video will help. Okay, so let's get started. The first question I have is x squared plus 10x minus 24 equals 0. Now remember, completing the square is another method that you could use besides using the quadratic formula. So it is very useful, and it also allows you to find certain equations of different things, including the equation of a parabola and the equation of a circle. But let's first start simply for solving for x. Your first step with completing the square is to always move the c term over. Your c term is the value that does not have any x's, it's just the number. So I'm going to first move over 24. And I'm going to have x squared plus 10x equals 24. I'm also going to keep in mind that my a value here is 1, which is great because I don't have to divide by anything. And I can move on to the next step, which is finding that magic number that makes this side here a perfect square trinomial. We want a perfect square trinomial, meaning that it breaks up into a binomial and a binomial, x and x, that are exactly the same. And the way that you get that value is you take the b term, and the b term in this case is 10. You take 10, you divide it by 2, obtaining 5, and then you square it, getting that magic number of 25. This magic number allows you to factor this perfect square trinomial into x plus 5 and x plus 5. Again, I added it on this and on that side so that I could obtain a equal equation, a balanced equation. When I add 24 and 25, I get 49. So I'm going to now rewrite my perfect square trinomial as a binomial squared because they are the same term and term. And then I'm going to take the square root of either side, canceling out the squared, and allowing me to help me solve for x, which is your goal. Whenever you take a square root, you need to put plus or minus, and 49 takes the square root and becomes 7. I'm going to subtract 5 now to solve for x. This is my final step. And your ultimate final step is actually seeing if you can get a concise answer, which you can if you split this up into the two answers that they are, which is -5 plus 7 and -5 minus 7. -5 plus 7 gets you 2, and -5 minus 7 gets you a negative 12. So this is your final answer here. Next question is also very similar. The first step you would do, as always, is add over the 11, which is your c term. Now the only thing that's slightly different about this problem is that my a value, my a term, which is here, is not 1. It's actually greater than 1. So when you have an a term that's greater than 1, you have to divide each term by it, allowing these to cancel actually, which is pretty nice. And then you need to put a space for your magic number and also put it on the other side so you keep your equation balanced. Again, like always, you take your b term. Your b term is 1, divide that by 2, and then square it, making you have 1/4, because 1 squared is 1 and 2 squared is 4, and you obtain 1/4 on either side. Now keep it as a fraction. I know you guys don't like fractions and you would rather work with a decimal, but it does help out in the long run, especially when you factor out this side. Remember, you want to use the AM method here, essentially. That's why you tried to find this term here. You're trying to find the term that multiplies perfectly with a perfect square and a perfect square that adds to 1. So I'm first going to do plus and plus because this second sign is plus and it adds to a positive. And I'm going to look at 1/4 and I'm going to say, okay, multiplying to 1/4 but adding to 1, it's always going to be just the square root of the c term here. The square root of 1/4 is 1/2. And ta-da, 1/4 breaks up into 1/2 and 1/2. And when you add 1/2 and 1/2, you're obtaining this 1 that you wanted to add to. Now this side, they have common denominators, which is great. Just add the numerators, which gets you 12. This side is a perfect square trinomial and is the same term and the same term, so I can rewrite it squared. 12 divided by 4 gets you 3. And now I can take the square root to help myself solve for x. So I get x plus 1/2 equals, never forget the plus or minus. Whenever you take a square root, you get two answers, so therefore you need a plus or minus. Subtract your 1/2. I end up getting x equals -1/2 plus or minus radical 3. Unlike the first one, this is a little messy. You can't really break it up. I mean, you could if you really wanted to. You could actually break it up and giving you two terms as -1/2 plus radical 3, comma, -1/2 minus radical 3. You could do that, but they don't combine really. So this answer or this answer are acceptable. Okay, so the next question is very similar. I'm going to move over my C term, which is 4. And ending up with 3x squared plus 4x equals -1. And then I also realized in this specific problem that my A term is not 1, it is 3, so I need to divide everything by 3, allowing my A term now to be 1. And I'm going to leave room for my magic number that'll make me have a perfect trinomial. So this one's a little weird because my B term is already a fraction, but here's what you would do. You want to divide this by 2, so do exactly how as I write it. So parentheses 4 over 3, divide that by 2 and square it, and then press math fraction. When you do that, you end up getting 4 over 6, and that reduces to 2 over 3. And when you square that, that gets you 4 over 9. So all you can do, this whole little section here, you could do that all on your calculator if you're not comfortable with doing it with your head. So I'm going to add 4 over 9 on either side. And this allows me to factor my left side perfectly. So x and x, x and x. This is positive, meaning that my signs are the same. This is positive, so they'll both be positive. 4 over 9. I want to add up to a 4/3. And like I said, if you just take the square root of this, you actually obtain 2/3 and 2/3. And that's exactly what you want. 2/3 times 2/3 multiplies to 4 over 9, but adds to 4 over 3, which is exactly what we want. And I'm going to plug this into my calculator with the parentheses around it, getting me equal to 1/9. And I end up with x plus 2/3 squared equals 1/9. Now I can take the square root. These cancel. X plus 2/3 equals plus or minus, like always. You could break this up if you want into the square root of 1 and the square root of 9, which is a great idea because that becomes 1/3. I'm going to subtract 2/3 and I end up getting x equals -2/3 plus or minus 1/3. Okay, I can split this up into two answers now. -2 over 3 plus 1/3 and -2 over 3 minus 1/3. This one's a nice way to, simplify your answer. Getting you two answers of -2 plus 1 gets you -1/3, comma, -2 minus 1 gets you -3 over 3. And that could actually reduce to -1. I hope this video helped you with completing the square. If you have any other questions, please come to Extra Help.